I heard that sound for a long time. The sound of a knife lazily cutting through the air. The sound of numbers on a clock. The sound of my own breathing, which became much louder in those last seconds. But the loudest was the voice. Edward's voice. When will you tell him? I'm waiting for you. It was March 14, 2024. Friday. 14:37 in local time in Chesapeake, Virginia. I know this exactly because it was the moment when my life divided into before and after. My name is James. I'm 39 years old. I'm a photojournalist with 15 years of experience. My wife Linda is 37 years old, a physical therapist. We got married 7 years ago in June 2017. This was the second marriage for both of us. My first marriage ended in divorce, which happened 10 years earlier, after 4 years of living together. I don't like to talk about it. Western Branch in Chesapeake is not New York. It's a quiet suburb where people know each other but not too well. The 2-bedroom apartment we bought together was our shared project. $220,000. Divided equally. Everything official, everything fair. People often ask, how are you living? We always answered the same way, good. Normal. Like everyone else. It wasn't a lie. It was just an incomplete truth. Our jobs were as opposite as sea and desert. I spent my days at events, at weddings, at corporate functions, with a camera in my hands, capturing moments that people want to remember. Linda worked at a clinic on Marina Boulevard, returning people their backs, their legs, their ability to walk. Her patients depended on her more than any photographer depended on me. Spring 2024 was somehow ordinary. It was warm outside, even warmer than usual. Linda woke up early at 5:30 a.m. She was already getting ready for work. She loved her job. I can say this without cynicism. She really loved it. I'll be home at 7 p.m., she would say every morning. And she would come at 7:15 or 7:45. Sometimes at 8 p.m. How was work? I would ask. Normal. One patient with arthritis, one with a hernia, one from running. You know my work, she would answer, letting her hair down. I knew. I had heard it for many years. But what I didn't know was about meeting Edward. Edward came to Linda's clinic about 10 months before. He had a back injury on the construction site. Just a fall, nothing catastrophic, but serious enough to require physical therapy. Several months of it. Twice a week. He was a construction worker. Strong, dark-skinned, about 36 years old. Divorced. No children. Everything I had stopped noticing as I became too busy with my work to notice that my wife had started to dress up more carefully before work. Now wait. I won't start writing about how she started putting on makeup better. That happens. It's normal. I'll write about what I found out later. The romance began sometime in June 2023. About 10 months before that phone call. In small steps. The first step is always the easiest. A hand on the back during a session. Is this okay? Asks the therapist. Yes, nods the patient. The next day, a conversation after the session. Then an invitation for coffee. Then an invitation for lunch, when Linda says she'll stay for a documentation meeting. I trusted her. That's the worst part. I trusted her because I had no reason not to trust her. Chesapeake is a city of 650,000 people. It's big enough to get lost. And small enough to run into each other by accident. Linda and Edward began driving to Norfolk. Norfolk is to the southeast, about 40 minutes away. There they had lunch at places where no one knew them. There Edward kissed Linda and she didn't pull away. There they developed a plan. The plan involved a trip to Venice. To Venice, Italy. March 14, 2024. I came home from a wedding album photo shoot. It's not uncommon for me to return late, so this day wasn't unusual. Linda was in the shower. I could hear the sound of water behind the closed bathroom door. Her phone lay on the bed. It was a casual, innocent gesture. A ringtone started sounding, and I assumed she would want me to answer. I answered. The display showed Edward. I knew this name. Linda had mentioned him as one of her patients. It wasn't a name I would have thought much about. But now I was thinking about it. I accepted the call. Edward's voice. Hi. Are you ready? I checked the gel flights for tomorrow. Everything will be perfect. When will you tell him? I'm waiting for you. Stop. Go back. Start again. The minutes that followed that call were somehow surreal. I turned off the phone. I go to the living room. I sit on the couch. I wait. Linda came out of the shower about 5 minutes later. What? Wrapped in a towel. She went straight to the bedroom without noticing me at first. Then she noticed. You're home early, she said. Your phone was ringing, I said. Her face changed. Not intentionally. It just changed. Like when you turn off the light in a room and you suddenly realize it was always dark. "Where's my phone?" she asked. "On the bed." Edward called. She said nothing. She went to the bedroom. I heard her calling back. I heard her voice, quiet, hurried, some strange intonation I had never heard. "Why did you tell him?" I said. "No, he heard. He heard everything." It was like watching flowers wilt in fast motion. Like watching destruction unfold in real time. When she returned to the living room, she already knew that I knew. And I already knew that she knew that I knew. It was some kind of tango we hadn't rehearsed before. "Where were you last month?" I asked. "At a conference." "I told you." "At a physical therapy conference." "Yes." "In Venice." She didn't answer. "Edward went with you," I said. "James, I." "How long has this been going on?" I interrupted. 10 months, she said. It was the sentence I would have wanted her to say, but also not quite the sentence. I did what some people would call foolishness. I asked her to tell me everything. She did. About 2 hours. She sat on one end of the couch, I sat on the other, and she told me the story of how she fell in love with another man, how she began planning a life without me, how she made the decision every day to apologize for something she would keep doing. "I love Edward," she said at one point. "Do you love me?" I asked. "Yes, but it's complicated." I knew how this would end. I had already calculated the trajectory. I already knew the result. The next day I went to attorney Bertha's office. I knew Bertha from my divorce 10 years ago. She was a good lawyer. Sure. Honestly brutal. "I need help with a divorce," I said. "Does one of you want out?" she asked. "She does." Bertha nodded as if she had heard it 1,000 times. Maybe she had. "Do you have evidence?" she asked. I told her about the phone call. About Venice. About the 10 months. "That's a good start, but we need more," she said. "You need documentation. Financial trails. Witnesses. Virginia law allows consideration of fault and property distribution, but only if we prove it convincingly enough." I walked down Marina Boulevard to the clinic where Linda worked. I didn't think about what to do. Instinct led me. I asked about the receptionist. His name was Otto. He was a guy about 26 with care on his face. I bought him coffee at a nearby cafe. I asked him if he had noticed Edward, the construction worker who came for sessions with Linda. Otto hesitated. I laid $500 cash on the table. People do strange things for money. Otto told me how Edward would come not for sessions, at least not on the schedule. How Linda often took breaks when he was there. How they would walk together during times when the clinic was less busy. Then I found Sophia. Sophia worked as a waitress at an Italian restaurant called Venezia in Norfolk. It was one of the places where Linda and Edward had lunch. I showed her a photo. Her face indicated that she remembered them. $300. That was the price of her memory. Sophia told me about how they sat at a table by the window, how they held hands, how Edward paid in cash, somehow to leave no trace. How they looked like a couple who had forgotten about the rest of the world. I checked the bank statements. It was horrifying. Over 10 months, Linda had transferred $32,000 to a separate account. Hotels in Venice, airline tickets, gifts. Everything was documented through the cruel magic of money that leaves electronic trails. When people talk about betrayal, they often talk about emotional complexity. About a mix of feelings. About anger and sadness mixed together. No one had told me about the coldness. About how you can sit at a table with a woman you've known for 7 years and look at her as if she's a stranger. About how you can talk about divorce questions, about property division, about who gets which piece of furniture with a lawyer's voice in your ear saying, "We can get 65% for you. Maybe even 70% if the judge likes the evidence." Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. Attorney Bertha also used the Venice trip. In Virginia, there's something called marital fault. If one of the spouses breaks a marriage promise, judges take it into account. Venice was the point Bertha constantly referred to. She took money from the joint account, Bertha said to the judge. She spent time with another man instead of with her husband, Bertha said. She planned this. It wasn't impulsive. It was premeditated. Linda sat in the courtroom and didn't look at me. She looked at attorney Vincent, the man she had hired for defense. Vincent did what a lawyer should do. He said that love cannot be divided equally. That people make mistakes. That divorce shouldn't be about punishment. Judge Marlin listened to all this and took notes. In the end, I got 65% of the property. The apartment went to me minus $77,000, which I had to pay Linda. It was a compromise. For both of us. The divorce was officially completed on September 12, 2024. Many people expect an explosion. They wait for the one who was exposed to start getting revenge. They wait for screaming, middle-of-the-night phone calls, drama that can be seen from space. I didn't give them that. Instead, I did something more bitter. I continued my life. I sold the apartment in Western Branch. I bought a small one-bedroom apartment on Mariners Court, near the harbor. It was a new beginning. A boring beginning. One that had no drama. But Bertha told me what would happen next. She told me how court documents would be transmitted. How professional boards would be informed of the divorce. How people in the community would find out. Because people do find out. It's inevitable. Otto told colleagues about what happened. Sophia told her manager. Attorney Bertha had her own network of gossip. Within a week of the divorce, Linda's friends began calling her with questions. Within a month, her parents knew. Within 2 months, Edward's mother reached out to her with hot questions about whether it was true that she had become the cause of her son's divorce. Linda began receiving fewer booking requests for appointments. Some older women with treatment programs began asking for another therapist. Not everyone disappeared, but enough to be noticed. Edward lost some construction orders. His manager at Chesapeake Builders heard about what happened. About the romantic exit from work. About the time he took off work. It wasn't an official reason for firing, but it affected how many projects he was given. All of this happened without my direct involvement. That was the most interesting moment. What I realized was that revenge happens on its own if you just let it develop. People do everything for you. They tell stories. They judge. They restore balance according to their own moral codes. I didn't need to do anything but live. But I wasn't a good man to just live and forget. I started taking pictures. It was the profession that had buried me and saved me. At first it was ordinary things. Cloudy sky over the harbor. A guy with a girl in the park. An old man picking flowers. All ordinary. Then I started shooting more. I began going to local club nights in Chesapeake. I photographed people, their laughter, their eyes. I looked for moments. I looked for the moment when a person forgets that a camera is watching. In October 2024, I walked near the Venezia restaurant in Norfolk. I took about 200 photographs. Some of them had Linda and Edward. It wasn't a lie, they really sat there drinking wine, talking. They looked happy. That was the most painful. I understood that they had gotten married. Edward had bought her a ring. It was in November. I found out about it from Otto, who heard from someone who heard from someone. It was the same chain of gossip that tells everything to everyone. Linda and Edward got married on November 23, 2024. It was a small ceremony. No parents, no close friends. Just the two of them, a witness and a court clerk. I wasn't there. I found out later. When I look at the photos from that day, the ones they posted on Facebook, I see two people who look completely destroyed and at the same time liberated. As if they had just escaped from a prison they had built for themselves. In truth, those photos told me what I needed to know. Linda wasn't smiling. Edward looked at her without looking at the camera. They didn't look happy. They looked like people who had crossed the Rubicon and understood that there's no going back. In December I received a letter. It came by mail. No name, no return address. Just an envelope with my name on the box on Mariners Court. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was uncertain, as if written by someone whose emotions had paralyzed them. James, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I have to. I know that you know about the betrayal. I know that you gathered evidence. I know that you gave it to the court. I know that part of you allows me to justify myself before God for what I did to you. But I'm not writing about justification. I'm writing about what I see every day when I look at Edward. He lost a good job. His mother no longer talks to him. His friends think he's a fool. He lives with a woman who has to take loans from her sister because she can't find work as a therapist in one city. They live in a hotel room in Atlantic City. They walk on a wire every day. I understand that this is my fault. It's not your fault. It's not his fault. It's my fault. But I also understand something I will never say out loud. How different would you have been for me if you had just yelled less? I'm not saying this to justify myself. I'm saying this because it's a truth that eats at me moment by moment. Linda, I read that letter 3 times. I burned it. Then I pulled the ashes out of the fireplace and read it again, dust and mucus. She was right. In our 7 years together, I was rough. I was demanding. As the years went on, I began to speak to Linda sharply, briefly, as if she had coal in her mind. My days went by with angry clients, disappointed in the quality of photos, coming home slightly. And Linda was at hand. That doesn't justify what she did, but it's context. And context matters. I didn't reply to the letter. I couldn't. But I began to understand something that is often not told in stories about betrayal. What really breaks a marriage is not the moment when one is discovered in the act of the other. It's the accumulation of small cruelties. It's how you speak. It's how you listen. In March 2025, I received an invitation to a photo exhibition. The exhibition was mine. I called it Taking One Moment. It was a collection of 50 photographs of people in moments of their anxiety. People looked at the camera without looking at the camera. People smiled without being happy. People kissed without being in love. It was an exhibition about secrets. About 300 people came to the opening. The gallery was in downtown Chesapeake. Multi-level, modern, with black walls and bright lighting. Some of my photographs were black and white. Some were in color. But all of them were about what happens beneath the surface. I didn't name them after names. I gave them names like silence, separation, choice, consequences. But people knew. People always know. The exhibition received a review in the local newspaper. A photographer from the Chesapeake Times wrote, "These photographs are not about what you see. They are about what you could hear if the world fell silent." The exhibition received an award. It was called Revelation of True Complexity. It was nice. It was also bitter. Because I knew that people came to the exhibition not because they valued art. They came because they heard that I used photographs to tell the story of family betrayal. They wanted to see a painful photograph. They wanted to see one of Linda's or Edward's photographs. And although I didn't show them openly, people thought they saw them. People recognized details. Recognized emotions. Recognized the story. It was the most powerful and most disturbing thing I had ever done. It was also my way of doing what I had to do, tell the truth. It's June 2025. Exactly 15 months since the day I answered that phone call that changed everything. Linda and Edward live in Atlantic City. She found work at a rehabilitation center, but it's not the same. The salary is smaller. Employers know the story. She doesn't talk about it, but she knows they know. Edward works in construction, but these are smaller projects. He didn't move up. He didn't have the opportunity to move up. His mother visited him once. She saw the hotel room. She saw how little they had. She promised him that it would pass. It would be okay. They would build a new life. It's possible. People build new lives from ruins every day. My brother said to me, "You won." I asked him, "What did I win?" He didn't know how to answer. I live in the apartment on Mariners Court. I look at the harbor every day. I drink coffee from the window overlooking the water. Some people call this peace. I call it exhaustion. I received an award for the exhibition. It was called Art Choice of the Year in Virginia. The prize was $15,000. At the ceremony, I stood on stage and listened to a speech about how art reveals truth. I thought about Linda, who told me in a letter, "How different would you have been for me if you had just yelled less?" On stage I said, "These are photographs about what destroys families." It's often not a big event. It's often small everyday cuts. I saw people nodding. I saw them understanding. They thought I was talking about Linda and Edward. They understood half the truth. Half is what I allowed them to see. In July I received a second letter. This time the handwriting belonged to Edward. There was a mistake, but I recognized the irregularity of the letters, the uncertainty of the strokes. "James, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because Linda asked me not to, which means I should. I know what you did. I know about the photos on the exhibition. I know about how people talked about me, my work, my mother. I know about how she looked at me with guilt and horror at the same time. You destroyed me not because I'm better than you. You destroyed me because I became a symbol of your mistake. But here's something you don't know. I don't love Linda anymore. I love the idea that I was the hero in her story. But ordinary reality is much less romantic. It's a hotel room where we both sit with dignity trying to figure out how to pay the bills. You won, James. But I'm not sure what's left for you as a prize. I look my mother in the eyes when she visits and I see disappointment. I look at Linda in the morning when she thinks I'm asleep, and I see her crying quietly. We made a mistake. And we live with that mistake every day. You live with a nice apartment. With an award. With an exhibition. I live with a woman who sometimes looks out the window as if she wanted to pass through the glass. That's why I'm writing. Not for forgiveness. But because I need to hang this bitter word. I understand why you did this. And I understand that it's even more bitter. Edward, I didn't burn this letter. I put it in a box where I keep other things I want to forget. I wrote a reply. I wrote it but didn't send it. I wrote, Edward, you speak as if you are a victim. But you are not a victim. You were a man who decided to kiss another man's wife in a restaurant. You were a man who came up with gel flights for a trip to Venice. You were part of the decision. But I can be honest about one thing, I won't do this again. I won't write more letters. I won't publish more photos. I won't count money. Because I understand something you don't. Revenge doesn't ease pain. It freezes it. James. I didn't send it. Letters that people don't send often weigh more than those they do. In August I started a new project. It wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't about revenge. It was about Chesapeake. About people who live here, work here, dream here. About fishermen on docks. About nurses leaving night shifts. About parents taking children to the park. Ordinary life. I learned to take photographs of ordinary life as if it was sacred. Because it is. I caught a 70-year-old woman laughing with her granddaughter. I caught a boy playing basketball in the park with the sun behind him, turning him into a golden silhouette. I caught the moment a fisherman pulled out fish, with satisfaction on his face. All of this was calm. All of this was real. All of this was free from anger and guilt. My new exhibition opens in October. It will be called Chesapeake Through Tears. The gallery administration has already heard about it. They expect another story of pain and revenge. I won't give them that. I'll give them beauty. That will be the better revenge. August 16, 2025. I received a call from Bertha. I have news for you, she said. I thought it was something about the property. Something administrative. Linda filed a complaint with the medical board about herself, Bertha said. What? I asked. She admitted a professional ethics violation. She asked for retraining course completion. She's pursuing recertification. I didn't know what to say. She also established a program for therapists who want to return after discipline, Bertha continued. She works with the Association of Physical Therapists. She talks about her mistake with other people. Why is she doing this? I asked. Because that's what people do when they want to change. I closed the phone. I sat at the mezzanine by the window looking at the harbor. I wanted to feel victory. Instead, I felt something more complicated. There comes a moment in every revenge story when the hero realizes he has become specialized in distributing pain. This was my moment. In September I sat in my room on Mariner's Court and read the advance preview of my new exhibition on the gallery website. The critic wrote, photographer James Turner's new album reveals the depth of human empathy. It's not about showing distortion. It's about sanctifying truth. Sanctifying truth. I thought about Linda sitting in a hotel room in Atlantic City, trying to recover her license. I thought about Edward, whose mother might never accept him because I showed everyone how families fail. I thought about myself, a 39-year-old photojournalist who received awards for photographs of other people's pain. Was that sanctification? Was that justification? My phone rang. A call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Hi James. It's Melissa. Melissa was Linda's sister. I hadn't heard from her in years. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said. But I want you to know. Linda asked me to pass it on. Pass on what? I asked. That all of this is her fault. Not yours. Not Edward's. Hers. She says she understands why you did it. She says she's not asking you to stop doing it. She just asks you to understand. Understand what? I asked. That people make mistakes. And that sometimes revenge is just another mistake stacked on top of the previous one. The line went silent. It's December 2025. 16 months since then. The apartment on Mariner's Court no longer looks new. It looks like a home of someone living in it. My new exhibition received excellent reviews. People came from other cities to see Chesapeake Through Tears. They cried in front of the photographs. No one asked about Linda and Edward. No one looked for symbols of pain. They just looked at beauty. It will be in 2 museums next year. But every time I look at these photographs, I think about the story behind them that people don't see. I think about a woman in a hotel room who writes letters that get to an address. I think about a man whose image has caught up with him. I also think about myself. About how I used my art to tell a story not about forgiveness but about justice. About how I thought truth needed witnesses. About how I forgot that witnesses are sometimes martyrs. In November I began writing a letter to Linda. It was a letter I could actually send. Linda, I don't know how to start. I think about you every day. It's not love. It's a memory of how you betrayed me. It was more painful than I could have imagined. But I also understand something I didn't understand that day when I picked up your phone. I was a cruel man. Not when I discovered the betrayal, then I was right. But before that, years of screaming, distrust, verbal abuse. I was the one who allowed you to leave us so you could find someone who screams less. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I can't. What I did afterwards, I regret it, but I also understand why I did it. What I'm writing this for is to say, I see you. I see what you're doing on the other side. I see how you're trying to change. And I'm no longer the man who thought revenge would help me. I'm proud of what you're doing with recertification. I'm proud that you acknowledge your mistakes. That's more courageous than anything I've ever done. James. I read the letter 3 times. I chose not to send it. Some letters are more important for writing than for sending. They say time heals wounds. That's a lie. Time just allows them to change color. They remain. Linda and Edward live in Atlantic City. She has recovered her license. She holds a leadership position at the rehabilitation center. Edward runs his own business. He opened a small construction firm. They're not rich, but they're okay. They have good days when they look at each other and think it was worth it. They have bad days when they think about what we lost. His mother wrote to him at Christmas, I love you. And I'm proud that you're trying to be a better man. That changed something in Edward. His mother chose him as her son in this romantic drama. She chose him. I don't know if that's fair. I know that it is. I unsealed the letter I didn't send to Linda and I burned it. Then I wrote a new letter, this time to myself. James, you won. You got the apartment. You got the photos. You got recognition. You got an exhibition, awards, anonymity. But you lost what you can't buy back. Innocence in thinking that what you did was right. Revenge is not about justice. Revenge is about congruence. It says, if you hurt me, I will make you suffer. You did it. You managed it. Linda endures it. Edward endures it. You think it's right. You think it's fair. But you know deep inside that it's just another way to break something that was already broken. Forgive yourself for being a bad husband. Forgive yourself for being a cruel avenger. Forgive yourself for using your talent to display someone else's pain. And find a way to live with it. Because that's the only way to stop the pain from spreading further. James. I didn't burn this letter. I put it on a shelf. Every day I see it and every day I think about what I should do. I haven't done it yet. But I started. In January I anonymously donated $5,000 to Linda's program for therapists recovering from ethics violations. She will never know it was me. But it was right. In February I declined an offer to republish my Photography of Pain, a collection from my first exhibition. The gallery wanted to republish it. I said no. In March I began teaching a young photographer who wanted to study human rights photojournalism. I told him what I did. I told him that truth and justice are not the same thing. What's the difference? He asked. Truth is what happened. Justice is how we fix it. I chose truth but forgot about justice. It was the best advice I've ever given. I don't know where I'll be in a year. I don't know if Linda will still be in Atlantic City. I don't know if Edward will stay with her. I don't know if life will give them a second chance. I know only one thing. I'm a man who lived his life as a photographer, seeing the world through a lens. I captured moments that people wanted to remember, and moments they wanted to forget. And I'm beginning to understand that the most important moment is not the one you photograph. It's when you put the camera down and look at the person in front of you as a person. Not as an object. Not as a symbol. As a person. Linda was for me an object of revenge. Edward was a symbol of my pain. I was a director in a film called Justice. But it was a horror movie. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.